Afternoon. How's everybody doing? Getting to be a long day yet? A little bit? Yeah, I see everybody. Come on. A little smile here, right? Well, let's see if we can go through a couple of good news programs, quite frankly. A couple of things I want to point out. First, I think you should be getting the sense from the day that there's really no one single solution to climate change. I think you get that sense from the types of programs, the numbers of programs that it took within the Climate Action Council. You saw that in some of the recommendations some of the modeling results from this morning. Even to get to the 80, using everything we've done, getting to that 80% reduction is going to even take more than we've seen. We talked about nuclear earlier. We've talked about energy efficiency some today. We've seen some really interesting pieces that are happening already. It's really great to see some projects being put on the ground in that last presentation. So it's really starting to take a portfolio feel to really start to address the complexities of driving over the length of time that we're talking about 80% of the carbon out of our system. This is really nothing less than a complete fundamental restructuring of the American economy. And I don't think anyone should think differently than that. It is that fundamental and that profound. So I'm going to present some good news in a couple of programs. One program specifically came out of the PA 295, and another program is really about restructuring the electric grid, if you will. I'm going to talk a little bit about energy efficiency and some of our successes in that program to date, and then a little bit about smart grid. They're really very related types of programs. So why don't we just jump right in. I think you all know and love Consumers Energy. We're one of the largest combined electric and gas utilities in the country, serving roughly about 6 million people in Michigan, about 7,700 employees. Pretty big employer. Been pretty stable over the years. We've been in Michigan about 118 years, and we'd like to stay at least that long, and probably longer. And keeping the lights on for you and keeping your houses warm. That's what we do, and we're proud of that. We do have a mix of generation, 28 facilities, coal, the traditional coal, gas, etc., hydro, but we're really also seeing a substantial movement in the renewables, certainly in wind and some in solar, as we talked about before. So let me just jump into this. Let me ask you a question. If there was a company coming to Michigan that announced a $7 billion capital program, how would the state react to that company? You're in, right? Our plans are roughly a $7 billion capital campaign for generation and for all the other types of programs that we've really been talking about, energy efficiency and others. The two programs I'm going to talk about today are about $1.5 billion worth of that $7 billion portfolio. It is a substantial amount of work, and quite frankly, will be a major economic force as we continue to move ahead and move Michigan's progress in energy. The energy optimization plan, the last session, somebody mentioned something about the utility being able to charge whatever it wants. It doesn't quite work that way. The regulated utilities really present their plans to the commission. The commission blesses those plans. Then we go in maybe a year afterwards and we say, here's what we do. Then there's a process called reconciliation. And then the commission decides how and whether those costs get passed on to consumers. So there's really a very strong regulatory nexus here. However, our energy optimization plan that we did file with the commission after PA 295 was passed really had two major components to it. One was to really avoid peaking capacity and lowering energy use. Peaking capacity, energy on peak during that hot part of the day when people are using everything. And then there's some sub-benefits associated with that, and really ultimately reduce costs and system loss. So there's a number of elements attributable to energy efficiency programs that were really embedded in our energy efficiency plan. That plan focused on residential, commercial, and industrial. We call it RCI. It's part of the TWIG, the Residential, Commercial, and Industrial Program. So there was programs principally for residential and commercial, some industrial programs, although the industrial businesses in Michigan, quite frankly, have been doing a lot of energy efficiency for a long time and could run their own programs under PA 295. We saw efficient programs, lighting takeoff, weatherization, recycling, some education programs that we have in our energy efficiency plan, and our business programs focused on some of those big hitters like lighting, efficiency lighting programs, some operational change. If you remember, PA 295 set some targets. Through 2015, 5.5% reduction in electrical use. For the electric side, about 5.5, and about 4% reduction on the gas side. So the energy efficiency programs are targeted both for electric and gas parts of our businesses. This, for us, is roughly a $500 million program. This is not an inconsequential program, of which that equates around $90 million to roughly about $90 million worth of capital spend, or spend, not capital spend, spend a year. The most popular programs that we saw, so if you remember, PA 295 passed at the end of 2008. Took us about 6 months to work to design the programs. We submitted our plan to the Public Service Commission for approval around the middle of the year, and then we're able to start those programs towards the middle of the year. So really we had about half a year under our belt in initiating energy efficiency programs for our customers around the state. The most popular ones were complex fluorescent light bulbs that you could buy at Home Depot or Lowe's and get instant rebates on. Furnace rebates. Now we offered a $350 rebate for a furnace and $350 for an air conditioner if you did them both together. It was $700 some. If you remember, the federal government also layered in about a $1,500 rebate. We expected 600-700 installations. There were over 2,000 installations of furnaces really towards the end of the year. Quite frankly, the vendors, the air conditioning vendors told us, the installers told us, it saved their businesses last year in large measure to see that much of an uptick in the business, both between the federal incentives and the additional incentives we offered. Exceptionally successful program. Moving from, and I know in my house I did this, moving from like a 50% efficient 1973 furnace, to about a 93% furnace, which will garner savings year after year after year. That was enough to help me over the edge. And then some popular business programs were in the commercial lighting and customized programs, at the customer's place of business. So, good news. 2000, we had set some goals. We exceeded those goals. The energy efficiency programs were very successful. Part of it was the incentives. Part of it was pent-up demand. Part of it social interest. There's a whole variety of pieces that contribute to the success of those programs. We saw substantial savings on the electric and the gas side, measured either in million cubic feet of gas or in megawatt hours. And remember, that was for programs that started in July or August or even a little bit later, so half or less than half a year to start to rack up those savings. And we'll see a whole year of savings as we move through 2010. Those goals obviously will be topped in 2010. We're already seeing some really good movement in those programs this year. We're going to continue to focus on those 2,000 programs that were most successful at the least cost. We're really trying to understand what the real costs of those programs are and make sure that our spended dollars are really spent in the places where the most efficiency came in at the least cost. Just so you know, I don't even have the numbers, but I know the company will be releasing its annual energy efficiency report within 4 or 5 days. We owe that report to the Commission. It's due, I think, by the end of this month. So within the week, you will see the specifics around how that program was successful and the cents per kilowatt we believe that program was run for. I think you'll be pleased, and I think you'll see progress as we meet these goals and continue to exceed the goals. We're going to look at some new pilot programs as we move through the year, and then obviously to make sure that everything stays in line, that we can service the debt on the equipment that we install, those decoupling requirements continue to need to be met as well. I had a little statement here. The decoupling piece, allowing us to continue to earn and to service the debt on our equipment, is an important consideration. As people lower their energy, it's still important for the utility to generate a revenue stream to pay for all the equipment that it puts out there, meet reliability concerns. Historically, obviously, the utility was not the business model did not lend itself well to incentivizing energy efficiency. Now with decoupling it does, but the decoupling was contingent on several things. So the company wanted decoupling and the legislature wanted a couple things. One was exceeding benchmarks on energy optimization programs and then commitments to provide enhanced energy efficiency programs and demand management programs. So as we meet those two conditions, the decoupling requirements continue to stay there and allows the company to essentially be made whole in this space. Let me shift a little bit, and it's very much a related program. This is going to be for us about a $900 million program. It's called Smart Grid. How many of you guys are familiar with some piece or all the pieces of Smart Grid, just to get a sense? Good. I don't need to educate too much on this. It is a two-way communications between the utility and its customers. Historically, which way has information or energy flowed? Central station, through all the transmission, through the distribution, to your home, to your use. And what kind of information flowed backwards in terms of use? And pretty minimal, right? Somebody came to your house once a month, read the meter, sent you a bill. There was a very incomplete relationship between use and cost, quite frankly. So with smart grid, with this new sets of technologies, with meters that now will be able to facilitate both the flow of energy and the flow of information in two directions, it opens up a whole new avenue for efficiency, for customer motivation, for pricing, for tariff structures, a whole variety of instruments and relationships, quite frankly, that have never been seen in the energy space. I think it's going to be, quite frankly, as revolutionary as the cell phone has become in terms of facilitating a relationship between you and energy use, and quite frankly, and the utility. We certainly hope. There's a number of customer benefits, both in terms of enhanced product design, as well as in cost management, and outage notifications, and cost management around meter readers, etc., and turn-offs, turn-ons, turn-offs, a whole variety of things. Let's move to the next. Smart grid strategy is really about bringing on sets of technologies that let you make choices about your energy use, and it allows the utility to make some choices. Whether that's on programs that you want to initiate yourself in your home, change your behavior, or whether you allow through rate structure or rate design the utility to make some changes relative to your energy use over time. So we go on from there. We call our AMI strategy, or our smart grid strategy, it used to be advanced metering infrastructure, but it's really a smart grid strategy. We call it, we're really taking a thoughtful approach. Quite frankly, we had some of the national leaders in smart grid, from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, from FERC, from the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and from the Department of Energy, and about 2 weeks ago, and really walked them through the approach that we're taking on smart grid. Remember, this is close to $1 billion investment. We want to do it in a way that other utilities have not done it. There was a utility in California that liked this approach. They installed about 300,000 meters, you saw the meters on people's houses, and realized that all the technologies didn't work well together. I didn't hear a gasp. Would you like us to take that approach? No, right? No, we don't want to take that approach either. And the real key to smart grid is making sure all of the pieces of it, from the meter to the meter management side that we do, to the home information systems, to the appliances that Whirlpool makes, or General Electric, or whoever that is, that they're all talking and communicating together and doing it in a way that's safe and secure. So there's an interoperability piece that's so critical that we're working really hard on, and that's part of this thoughtful approach. We don't want to believe in brochureware. Vendors make all sorts of claims, and if you just go on what the vendors say, sometimes you can make a mistake. So we're trying to take a very thoughtful approach, but we still want to make sure we're moving society towards this new conception of human interaction with energy and energy use. Quite frankly, it's really nothing less than that. So we're doing a lot of collaboration, a lot of standards work at NIST. Did you have a question?
Yeah,
sure.
I wanted to ask.
But you're giving me the high sign.
At that point, what kind of stimulus money has been requested by consumers for the smart metering as part of the smart grid?
We had one request for stimulus money and we're turned down. This is still part of our thoughtful approach, making sure that we're doing this in partnership and letting the Commission know how we're going about this, making sure that we're in step with our regulators, making sure that we're understanding what our customers want. So this is still within the design of our standard model for operating. This is not stimulus based.
Now DTE has some of that money.
I would have to let them speak specifically about what their relationship is. I don't want to.
I understand.
I believe so, but I'd let them speak for that.
Okay, I'd be interested. But what I am understanding though too is that a lot of the criteria for the projects have yet to be developed. The RFPs for this, it's really the technical requests have not been developed by the agencies in charge of dispensing that.
We need to know how the standards and the interoperability standards work and making sure what the nature of vendors' claims are. Certainly before we start, we're looking to, and I'll show you a slide here, we're not looking for mass meter deployment probably until around 2012. We think that we'll have a really pretty good understanding about how the system works. Now remember, we send meter readers out once a month to read your meter. The corollary to this under smart grid is we're going to be collecting about 1 billion pieces of information a month. Understanding that 1 billion pieces of information a month about energy use we need to understand how to do that, for one, and how to make sure that that gets properly into a billing cycle, and then how do I facilitate a response back to customers in terms of changing behavior. Eventually, for a $1 billion investment, you'd like to think that people will use less energy, or they'll use it in a different fashion.
Do you have to build those information models yourself within, or are there vendors that do this?
Oh, there are many vendors that will do this, and they'll make all sorts of claims, good and bad. We have to understand that. We do use SAP as our core standard operating system, and we've been participating with SAP and an organization called Lighthouse Council as SAP builds this information communications, links to billing structures, links to all the different financial pieces within that, and how you set tariffs and rates, etc.
You're rightfully cautious about vendor claims, but what is your level of expectation in round numbers for the percentage of energy savings that you'll see out of the full implementation?
We're right now evaluating that, quite frankly. I cannot give you, based on various programs, I think for air conditioning load control, which we'll talk about in a minute under some pilots we're doing this summer, I think we'll have a better handle on that. So some of the more definitive programs that we know we can manage, and within certain assumptions, I think we can get some estimates. How are customers going to respond? You saw those wonderful supply and demand curves earlier, right? What is the demand elasticity for energy in your house? Will you choose to dry your clothes at a different time? Will you choose to dry or curl your hair at a different time? Will you choose to do different things at different times or do less as you're seeing price signals in the market? And I think, quite frankly, the jury's still out on exactly how different customers in different places at different times will interact. Is there a demand elasticity or isn't there? How high do prices have to go? How quickly do they have to go?
And let me rephrase the question. How much would you want your pilot studies to show you can get to make it worthwhile to go ahead?
The business case principally right now for us for smart grid is not based around the demand elasticity model. It's really based around operating and maintenance savings, meter reading savings, the ability to do turn-offs and turn-ons, the other aspects that we know we can quantify. To the extent that we can continue to quantify more benefits out of AMI, the business case gets stronger. We don't want to be making claims right now that smart grid's going to drive out X percentage of carbon, or that it's quantified in this way, until we really understand what that relationship looks like. That's part of this thoughtful approach.
How close are the appliance and consumer electronics manufacturers to agreeing on a standard of language to speak to the smart meters?
Well, I think they all agree on the standard as long as it's the one they like.
Right, exactly. So how close are we?
I think things are coalescing, and I think the government plays a role in sort of nudging people into the same ring now, whether it's Rock'em Sock'em Robots or whether it's something a little more like a love fest. I'm not sure, but I think that will start to coalesce. Quite frankly, it's partly coalescing because organizations like ours, with 1.8 million meters, or other companies with 10 million meters, are starting to chomp at the bit. So I think there will be some social pressure to make sure that we get to some standards. But remember, the standards, the smart grid standards, our estimate is right now there will be over 1,000 National Institute of NIST standards, 1,000 standards. This is not one standard like a Zigbee standard for communications. There's 1,000 standards associated with the development. Those take time. Those take a long time. Let me move to a couple of slides. I may answer some questions, and we can keep going through this because I want to make sure we have plenty of time for everybody else. The big cost of money for smart grid is going to be on the meters and field communication side. So that's about 80% of the cost of that $900 million. Go through there. Part of our approach is we've put together something called the Smart Services Learning Center, which is really a very advanced testing and evaluation and demonstration facility with a kitchen, living room, backyard, laundry, the ability to look at plug-in electric vehicles, integrate renewables into the grid, an actual smart grid that can experience outages, and really start to understand the relationship between that meter behavior and energy use, really understand the dynamics and help educate around that. So I certainly welcome you if you have a group. We've had thousands of people come through the Smart Services Learning Center. We have kitchen appliances and kitchens and different lighting standards, and we can really start to understand how these technologies and meters all start to interact together and whether they do work or not work, in addition to all the field pilots. Next slide. 2 pilots this summer. One is a direct load management program. It's really us controlling your load. How many of you love that idea? Come on. Come on. Who's with me? How many of you love the thought that I can control your load in your house? How many of you like it a little more if you pay less electricity for me to do that? All right. Now, yeah, he says, I'll talk to you. All right. Yeah, come on.
Money talk.
Well, so for a lower rate design, would you allow me to control your air conditioner compressor? Maybe not the blower, but the compressor for 5 or 10 minutes on the hour. Now, if I can do that for 1.8 million customers and shave peak off and probably have you not notice a difference in temperature, for a lower price, how many of you are interested in that program? Or at least evaluating it, right? See where I'm going with direct load management? So we have some programs going on this summer to try to help understand it. With Smart Grid, with a 2-way communication device where I can send signals to your house, turn off the compressor, turn it back on, watch the temperature in your house, it starts to be a really interesting program. Now, do I drive a lot of carbon out? I may not, but I certainly drive peak load out, which now I don't have to bill for peak load. So I can substitute.
Did you need a new air conditioner to do that, or?
Module on your air conditioner. Okay, next pilot that we're going to look, go back one. Next pilot we're going to look at is really about customer behavior. Will customers react to different prices or dynamic prices? So test response to price. So if I tell you it's 20 cents, will you not use some appliance? If I tell you it's 5 cents, are you going to go hell-bent for leather? I mean, so how are people really going to start to interact when they start to see prices? So we have a pilot going on this summer in the Jackson area with our deployment of about 9,000 smart meters right now to really start to take a look at this piece. Next, I'll pass on that. And then the timeline, and then I'm done. So just a number of pieces. We have Smart Grid pilots and phases. We have some of these pilots going on right now, and really ultimately this mass meter deployment really around 2012 to 2016. After we believe we hopefully will have seen the coalescence of these thousands of standards, both from the appliance manufacturers to the meter. We don't want to be locked into one meter manufacturer forever. If I buy the first meter and every other meter I have to buy for the next 20 years is the same meter, that's not a good deal for you as a customer. Because guess what? They know they got me. And I want to be able on a periodic basis to be able to go back out to bid and say, don't do this to me. I'd like to go with her product. And so we want to make sure all that's in line so we can continue to manage price. That's the good news that we're doing. This is really a consequence of our conversations on capacity and need forum at the Commission, 21st Century Energy Plan, which the Michigan Climate Action Council, and then the reality of Peak 295 that we're responding to. Some really good things happening, and I think it's a really exciting time to be in the energy business, and I think it's going to be a great, exciting time to be customers from energy. I think there's going to be a huge amount of product offerings and some huge opportunities for people to really start thinking about their interaction with energy and the amenities that energy provides. So with that, I'll say thank you, and I'm more about quarter after, and I want to make sure Tom has plenty of time. I'd love to answer questions for you, but Mike, I didn't mean to do that. That's your job.